Twice in 2 years, men were charged with murder in the rural Victorian district of Kooreh. The first in 1902 was Robert Bilson Hawkins, a farmer aged 42. His farm was considered a good one, worth about £2,000, but his mortgage was almost as much, so that his financial position was not rosy. He had married his first wife, Clara Ellen Heath, in 1884, and the couple had 6 children. The eldest child, Percy, died aged 16 days in 1885, but the other children, 4 daughters and another son, all survived. Clara died in 1898, and in 1899 Hawkins married Martha Rinaldi, who was much younger than he. She was only 18. Martha, who was the 4th child in a family of 13, had a sister named Catherine, who was a year younger than her. When Martha was away in St. Arno being treated for an illness in November 1900, Katie went to the farm to help her new brother-in-law. She stopped there for 7 weeks, and while there Hawkins seduced the 18-year-old. Catherine immediately informed her sister of what had transpired upon her return in December 1900. The couple had argued, but Martha seemed content to accept her husband's infidelity. Her own child, Percy Robert Hawkins, was born in 1901. Then Catherine announced to Hawkins that she too was pregnant, and that he must be the father. Hawkins told Catherine to say nothing to her mother, and offered to pay for her to go somewhere and have the baby in secret, and have it adopted. He subsequently paid for Catherine to board at Mrs. Fisher's private hospital in St. Arno, under the name Mrs. Smith Hawkins. The baby, a girl named Sybil Jean, was born on the 14th of September, 1901. On the 26th of September, arrangements were made for the baby to be fostered for 5 shillings a week by Miss Kate Ryan, who had once been employed by Hawkins when his first wife was alive. Miss Ryan was told that the child's father had died in Western Australia. Miss Ryan was unable to obtain registration to keep the child, so Hawkins said he would find someone else to look after it. In late October, Hawkins called on Miss Ryan alone, saying his wife was ill. It was 9 o'clock in the evening when he arrived, and Miss Ryan and the baby boarded his cart, and he drove them as far as a tannery at the junction of Napier Street and Inglewood Road, St. Arno. The baby was warmly dressed in a cream cashmere washing bonnet, white pinafore, red dress, flannel petticoat, white flannel chemise, and white wool booties, and wrapped in a white washing shawl. He refused to take a bundle of other clothing for the baby, saying that where he was taking the child the woman was so toffy she would not like them. Miss Ryan heard the vehicle going up the hill as she walked back home. Hawkins claimed he met his wife after he left Miss Ryan, despite telling her that Martha was too ill to come out. Saying that she was late, but eventually she and another woman, who kept in the shadows so that Hawkins could not see her features, emerged from the direction of the tannery. Martha said the woman would take the child for them, but when Hawkins asked about terms, the mystery woman replied, "I don't do business with gentlemen on these occasions." The woman took the baby, and later it was said to have been adopted. If Miss Ryan was correct that Hawkins went up the hill, then he took the road which led away from the tannery, and not slightly behind him. The baby was never seen again after Hawkins drove off with it that night. In January, Senior Constable Faulkner and 2 Indigenous trackers named Bosom and Costello searched areas along the road between St. Arno and Kooreh for any trace of the baby or the clothing it was wearing when last seen. It was a difficult job, for there were numerous small creeks, thick scrub and abandoned gold diggings all through the search zone. Rain added to the trouble of their task. The search continued through February, but no trace of Sybil was ever found. Police suspected the tiny infant had been thrown into Campbell's Creek by her own father. On December the 6th, 1901, Martha died from a gunshot injury at the farm in Kooreh South. According to her husband, the gun, which was standing in a corner of the kitchen, must have accidentally been pulled over by Martha when she was moving a towel. The towel was on a chair next to the gun and had a frayed end, one of the threads catching the trigger as it was pulled. Hawkins said one of the hammers on the gun was loose. Hawkins ran a half-mile across paddocks to his father's house, carrying his baby son Percy in his arms at about 2 p.m, calling out excitedly that Martha had been shot. On the way, he told his 11-year-old son George, who had had dinner with his father and stepmother 30 minutes earlier, that Marty was shot and to run home. George had heard the 2 gunshots about 10 minutes before his father appeared. By incredible foresight, Hawkins had insured his wife's life for £500 with Mutual Life Association of Australia on the 2nd of June 1901, just 6 months earlier, for just £12 10 shillings per annum, payable in quarterly instalments, the second of which he paid 4 days before Martha died. He had arranged to insure his own life for £100 with AMP, and passed the physical to be eligible on the 27th of September, but neglected to pay the premium. Post-mortem evidence refuted the possibility that a gun falling over could have caused the wounds suffered by Martha. Both shots were in a downwards direction, and were not simultaneous, but one quickly followed the other. The first shot tore out her left eye and a 2.5-inch chunk of bone from her forehead. The second struck her on the front and the left side of her neck, 6 inches below the previous shot. She died instantly. Martha also had a hole in her thumb. It was later argued whether this could have happened in the scenario of an accident, or if she put up her hand instinctively to protect her face. Blood was sprayed through the room and pooled around the body. Outside, between the house and 2 detached rooms, was another pool of blood. One of the detached rooms was the kitchen. Hawkins claimed he heard Martha cry out, "Oh," and looked around to see her falling towards the chair, as the chair and the gun fell towards her. Before he could do anything, the gun discharged. He carried his wife to the dining room in the main house and laid her on the couch. Then he ran to raise the alarm. An inquest quickly decided the gunshot was probably an accident, and Martha was buried in Bialiba Cemetery. Her blood-stained clothes were left lying in the house for a week, until Jessie Cole, Hawkins' sister, burned them. Both hammers on the gun worked well, and one was not loose when examined by police. Hawkins began drinking heavily following the death of Martha. It was while intoxicated on the 8th of January 1902 that he attempted to drown himself in a water tank behind a hotel, after hearing rumours he had killed his wife and illegitimate child. He was arrested for being drunk and disorderly. The same rumours had reached the police, and the body of Martha was exhumed on the 17th of January 1902 and re-examined. It was then decided to charge Hawkins with murder. Rumours spread that his first wife had been poisoned and that the body would be exhumed began to circulate, but Clara Hawkins' body was never dug up and tested. Hawkins was put on trial for the murder of his wife on the 13th of March 1902 at Ararat. The relationship with Catherine was raised in court as a possible motive for wanting her out of the way. It was revealed that Catherine had continued to have sex with him before and after Martha's death. Susan, another of Martha's sisters, said that she had heard Martha threaten to leave Hawkins in June, but he had convinced her to stay. Robert J. Hawkins, the father of the accused, revealed the oddly coincidental fact that his son had also been shot and lost his left eye because of it, back in 1876, when he was 17 years old. The jury were allowed to handle the gun and attempted to get the supposedly faulty hammer to drop, although it had been altered due to testing. With so much shaking, one went halfway, but no further. The jury retired at 6:45 on the evening of the 15th of March, and despite deliberating until 1 a.m, they were unable to reach agreement. Reluctantly, the judge discharged them and set a new trial for Hawkins at Ballarat on the 8th of April. At the second trial, Alberta Hawkins, the 16-year-old daughter of Robert Hawkins, gave evidence that the gun had accidentally gone off in her hands a year earlier, and that 5 years before that it had done the same when her father was holding it. Yet this dangerous weapon was kept loaded at all times, according to Hawkins. At the conclusion of the second trial, the jury acquitted Hawkins of the murder of his second wife. Martha had left a will dated 26th of September 1901, but as she was under the age of 21 at the time, it had no legal validity. Under statutory distribution of property, Hawkins got 1/3 of her estate, and their child received 2/3. Hawkins may have been lucky to have been found not guilty, but his brushes with the law did not end there. In 1913 he was accused of stealing 73 merino sheep belonging to his erstwhile father-in-law, John Rinaldi. He was found taking to Bendigo Market. The animals were taken between the 27th of March and the 16th of April. Hawkins had altered the original brands of the sheep and removed earmarks from them. In June he was found guilty and asked if he had anything to say before sentencing. Hawkins announced that he was the father of a motherless family and it would be hard for them if he were sent to jail. Justice Beckett sentenced Hawkins to 2 years with hard labour. Robert Bilson Hawkins died at the age of 74 in 1933. The second tragedy at Kooreh occurred on the 10th of August 1903. This time there was no doubt that murder was done. A mentally troubled man named Ernest Alfred Williams, aged 30, killed his mother Eliza in front of Claudia Harris, her adopted 10-year-old daughter, at tea time. Ernest, his brother George and Claudia lived with Eliza Williams. Ernest had been out during the day at St. Arno and returned at 6 p.m, when all four had tea together, and then George went out. His brother seemed normal when George left, yet soon afterwards Ernest picked up a poker and slammed it down on his mother's head. Then he turned and hit the girl, making a nasty wound on her head. She fled at once to a neighbour's house, while Williams returned his attention to his mother, beating her head to a pulp. 2 hours after leaving home, George learned that his mother was dead. Williams had left the house but returned the following night. The noise of dogs barking alerted 2 neighbours, who found Williams carrying his boots under his arm. Despite being a slightly built man and appearing to be only half fed, he put up a desperate struggle with them. He was held until the police arrived and he was taken into custody. He appeared more sane than usual and denied he had been in the house at the time, despite witnesses seeing him. Blood was found on his trousers, which was sent for analysis. Ernest had twice been placed in an asylum for the insane. He had only returned home from Kew 4 months earlier. He remarked that if he were sent back to the Kew asylum, he would kill the first warder he could. During the committal proceedings for trial, William showed no concern, smiling broadly, and occasionally laughed as the evidence was heard. At the trial, the Crown prosecutor said that the accused was not in a position to plead, not being sane, but William's lawyer desired the case to proceed. A jury was impanelled to assess the defendant's sanity. They found that he was unable to plead, and the judge, who was once again Justice Beckett, ordered Williams returned to Ballarat Jail during His Excellency's pleasure. On the 19th of October 1903, Williams was sent to J Ward at Ararat Mental Hospital, where the most dangerous of mentally ill men in Victoria were consigned. During his time there, he sometimes became excitable and dangerous. In October 1912, he began to exhibit symptoms of tuberculosis, constantly coughing and spitting. He remained well enough to exercise until the 9th of September 1913, when his condition suddenly worsened, and he died on the 14th of September 1913 of bronchopneumonia at the age of 40.